Well, how's everyone doing today? This is Bob Gums bringing you the Concerned Forum. And as usual, we have quite a bit going on. Quite a bit. One of the things that I think that we really need to take a look at, we need to take a look at two places. One is Florida and its governor. The other one is the state of Texas. You'll see why momentarily. I am, I'm pretty shaken up about this. Um, I seem to be in a neighborhood all by myself in that regard. In case you don't know, in Jacksonville, Florida, a place that it's known for its barbarism and racism, you had an incident last week. Three black Americans. Do we know if they knew each other? I don't even know if they knew each other. But these people were doing the unpardonable sin of shopping at the dollar store. Yeah, isn't that awful? you know, ain't that a kick? I mean, who did those three folks think they are? What gives them the idea that they could just go to any damn store they feel like going to here in America? Well, I know that sounds really crazy, right? To say something like that. Unfortunately, it's not as crazy as you might think. The same thing that happened here in upstate New York, in Buffalo, unfortunately, the same thing happened in Jacksonville. Now, I believe it was two men, two black men, and a young black female. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the female, uh, she was disfigured so badly from where the filthy animal shot her in the face and head. Because I know that Al Sharpton is going to be up there. I believe it's going to be this week doing the funeral, and it's going to be closed casket, which is proper. Her family and friends don't need to see her disfigured. But just think about that. You're walking along, minding your own business, shopping here, shopping there. Uh, Unfortunately, knowing me, I'd have probably been hunting around trying to pick up a inexpensive six-pack of beer. And the next thing you know, you're talking with St. Peter. Hey, I just stepped out for a little bit to, pick up some chips and some suds. What the hell happened? And of course, the governor, uh, somebody nicknamed him Governor Sanctimonious, uh, which I think is an apt name for him. Uh, this guy comes to Jacksonville, doing the elected official schmeal. Oh well, this filthy scumbag that blah 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 blah. I'm happy and proud to say that the audience there in Jacksonville, which is predominantly black, booed him. Somebody said something about, manners, and well, in his case, I I think it was good manners that people didn't start throwing stuff at him. As far as the booing, I think that was um, more than justified. But see, that's what we have now in this country. We have a situation where some public officials they feel that they can say what they want, whether it's true or not, and basically they think it's fine to spread hate, just like those idiots that they pulled that crap when Trump first got elected. What was it, Charlottesville, Virginia? The Jews will not replace us. I, you know, I am so damn sick of this. And I believe that what needs to happen is that the elected officials in these communities, no one is calling for violence. No one on the Democratic side, the progressive side, the independent side, however you want to call it, we're not asking for violence. We didn't create this situation. But I do believe, just like I believe that, here in New York, the people who are the victims, they need to be able to know that they can defend themselves. It's just that simple. And I will also raise the point, because I know someone's out there is going to say, well, hey, that's what the law enforcement is for. Listen, and I'm not going to get into this thing about, how the law enforcement in this country constantly harasses people of color, and in some parts of the country, are quite nasty towards Jewish Americans. Well, I'm not going to get on that, because a police department or a law enforcement organization on its best day cannot be everywhere. I believe we know that now. And we need, just like right here in New York, we need for our elected officials to come to the community and say, well, hey, these are the ideas that we have, so that people are able to protect themselves. Now, I did security for the Unitarian Church. I believe it was last year, or was it? No, it was about the year before that, if I'm not mistaken. That's when this rash of anti-Semitic attacks started up. And Unitarians, yeah, we are a kind of a Christian faith, but we welcome everyone. And the church that I was in at that time, we had quite a few former practicing Jews and actual practicing Jews, as well as former Catholics, practicing Baptists, and so on. And I was asked if I would mind, because of my background, if I would mind helping out in terms of security. I forgot what Jewish holiday we were coming upon, but I was happy to do it. I didn't really take money for it, come to think of it, because I was glad to help. And I would be happy to do it again. I'm not in the same church now that I was at that time, but I would be glad to help. And see, these are some of the things that the Democratic side of the House, the progressive side of the House, these are things that we have to start looking at, because we have to realize something, whether we like it or not. One thing we can thank Donald Trump for, he broke the seal. And I hope he's proud of himself. Some people, they want to put their name in history, Some people, I want to be known for being the greatest basketball player, greatest football player, the greatest dancer, singer, boxer, what have you. Someone like Bruce Lee, he will be known as the greatest martial artist. But some people are just no damn good. And they know that they're no damn good. So therefore, they want to be known for time immemorial as being a real son of a bitch. And that's the situation that we have with Donald Trump. Donald found something, it took something that we grew up believing that it could never be broken. And what I'm referring, of course, to the changing of the guard. In other words, American democracy, one thing we are known for, or were known for, was our stability, right? Even when we had the Civil War, right? We still had stability. No one argued about the election of 1860. The South didn't like it because, they had left the Union, they would never vote for Republicans, etc. But the basic change from one chief executive to the next, that was, no one screwed with that. And like I said, the fact that we held democratic elections in the middle of a damn civil war. But unfortunately, with the advent of Donald Trump and Trumpism, we can no longer say that. So I hope that Donald is happy. He talks so much about patriotism. And, that's something else. Now, I would really have liked, this guy that did that murder, he wrote out this big-ass manifesto. Black people are dangerous. They're trying to replace white people. I tell you something, honestly, this country, America, we are never going to get straight as a nation until we deal with this racial thing. Okay? That's a polite way of saying it. But we're just not. It's not going to happen. Because number one, that is our greatest weakness. The idea that you have certain people are somehow not as worthy or not as good as other people, and therefore they are not entitled to certain things. That is, hey, even Thomas Jefferson recognized that. the whole slavery thing and what and what it leads to. I tell people, in my opinion, America's greatest sin was not slavery per se. I mean, slavery is bad, okay? But the idea that the people that you held in bondage were somehow inferior, well, what you basically did, you set up booby traps for your democracy, because that can be used by the enemies of this country to bring about disunity, to bring about violence. You tell people of color, hey, the rest of them, they're all against you. And unfortunately, all you have to do is read the history. America is not known for its, how should I say, its kindness, its fairness to people of color. It's just not. Even when those people of color have been here before the dominant group, dominant population. In other words, I'm talking about slavery, right? But these issues didn't start with slavery. America, I'm going kind of slow with this because of the fact I don't want what I'm saying to be misconstrued. And because this is serious business that we're talking about. Now, we always talk about, we got to think about our kids' future. Well, listen, let's be real about this. The future of our children, that's going to be their future, okay? I have no idea what my kids will be doing 100 years from now. And see, that's one of the, maybe you can say that's one of the downsides of parenting, especially in a country like this, here in America. Because we can do a lot of things to really screw up the future of our children and grandchildren. We can create a society where there's always hatred, never any forgiveness, no understanding. And when you do that, all you're doing is you are making problems for the next generation. So when people talk about, I got to think about my kids, I tell people the best thing that we can do for our children is to do the right thing, okay? And let our children see us doing the right thing and fighting for the right thing. That way, 50 years down the road, 30 years down the road, whatever happens, right? Your kids, my kids, they'll handle it. If it's in the Creator's desire to see us continue for another 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years or longer, if it's the Creator's feeling that, these folks here, they deserve another millennia, a couple of millennia to go. Fine. The point is, we know that, we have made sure that we have taken care of the basics for our children. They'll have to handle it. When the conservatives, I guess nowadays we're talking about Republicans, although I don't know because there really is no Republican Party. Okay? I grew up in the Republican Party. What we see now, this ain't the Republican Party. This is some kind of neo-fascist gang, some type of neo-fascist gangbangers, essentially, just like those folks that was sentenced yesterday with the poor boys. See, that is what passes today for the Republican Party. It wasn't like that. And I wish that, I'm a progressive, super progressive Democrat, but I'll be the first one to tell you, you had some decent people in the Republican Party. Not always correct, not always right, but they were decent. And they tried to do the right thing. I tell you quite frankly, between big money and fundamentalist religion and American racism, that's what really hurt the Republican Party. Okay? But what you see now is a disgrace. And no, this is not the Republican Party. I get upset with my leader, Joe Biden. I love that man, but sometimes I do get upset with him because he works too hard sometimes to find the goodness in people. And no, that's not a bad thing, but it can be a dangerous thing. See, because Biden looks for something that a lot of us feel it's no longer there. Like when he talks about reaching across the aisle. I don't think that that's there. That woman, what's her name? They call her MTG out of Georgia. The crazy lady, okay? And the other one from Colorado. I think she comes out of the only crazy district that they have in Colorado. Those two, what's her name, Bobbitt or something of that nature? Those people are not Republicans. There's no way in hell that either one of those ladies could have walked into any decent Republican club in 1975 or 76. There's no way in hell. But I think that, Joe has this thing that, well, I know that they're crazy, Rob, but my boy McConnell, we'll go, when we get behind closed doors or we're back in the cloakroom or somewhere, we'll get it all straightened out. And see, that's the problem that Biden has. He's used from all his time in the Senate, he's used to talking with people who at least, how should I say, they at least had some basis of logic. Okay? Republican Party has lost that. And it's not me making stuff up. You look at the type of people that you see in today's Republican Party. You got somebody up there saying, well, women don't have to get pregnant if they're raped. I mean, come on, slavery was really a big jobs training program. I mean, come on, man. That's not the Republican Party. Right? Now, you got somebody now saying, oh, well, of course, bankers are they're the most important part of our economy. Okay, that's Republican. All right? That's Republican. But they were able in their own way, they were able to try and relate to the small businessman in downtown Wisconsin. And so you also have to remember the heart of the Republican Party was in the Midwest and New England. But as you can see, it's no longer like that. And that is one of the problems. But you also have a Republican Party of today that, unlike the Republican Party of 30 years ago, 20 years ago even, this one now, they have no sense of history. As a matter of fact, they hate history. They don't want kids to learn history in school. And again, going back to what I said originally, you got this guy in Florida, right? And he wants to lock up all the teachers that teach history, basically, right? He doesn't want you to teach anything that might make someone feel bad. I don't get this. How the hell, or I should say, what the hell does you feeling bad have to do with the learning of American history, or world history for that matter? I don't, sometimes Jesus Christ, I can't even get the words out sometimes. What the hell? Hey man, it's like a boy borrows your car and then 2 days later he comes back and the only thing he has to show for it is the car keys and the steering wheel. Hey dude, what did you do to my car? What happened to my car? And this is the problem with the Republican Party in today's America. A political party should not be a freaking time machine going backwards. That's what has happened. And you can't do that. Everybody here has had kids. How would you feel, or how would it look if you try to force your 16-year-old into the clothes that you used to get for him when he was 6? Yeah. Well, essentially, that's what this Republican Party of today is trying to do to America. They're trying to make us go backwards. They're trying to make us live and do things in such a way that it's gone. Okay? We don't have, as far as being a guy, right? There's no state in the union that gives me permission to beat my wife. Yeah, at one time, wife beating was not considered a crime. So, when women talk about the patriarchy, what do they call it? The patriarchy, men-dominated patriarchy. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but you know what I mean. Men, they rule everything. And then a lot of times, because sometimes us men can be very thick, right? They a bunch of broads, they just, they just want to run everything. They always want to make us look stupid. Well, fellas, I know you're going to try and take away my man club card, but a lot of times the women are right. A lot of times we are stupid. And somebody will say, well, are you saying that women ain't stupid? No, I'm not saying that. Sometimes women do stupid things. But it depends. It depends. Sometimes there are a lot of ways to get somebody off the top of a building. You can say, hey, come on with me, let's run downstairs. Or you can say, hey, come on with me, let's get your elevator and go downstairs and go out to the park, right? And then sometimes with your behavior, you can literally make somebody jump off the top of a damn roof of a building. See, and I'm starting to really, see things, right? That a lot of us as men, we were brought up not to see. I remember the whole thing with women's lib, and people tried to make a big joke out of it, right? It wasn't a joke. Because as I got older, I started to remember things. I started to remember the crap that my mom used to have to go through. And I'm not just, I'm not talking about necessarily between her and my dad, right? I wasn't one of those kids that grew up in a home where, mom was getting beat on or anything like that. Because my old lady wouldn't have that shit. I'm serious. I've seen her lay out women. I've seen her try to lay out men, okay? She wouldn't take no junk. But just the way everything was set up, some jobs, a lot of times it would depend if you were married or not married. If you wanted to have a credit card, were you married? I mean, most ridiculous stuff. What's her name? The woman I really respected, but I'm kind of ticked at her, God rest her soul. The Supreme Court lady. She just passed away. As a matter of fact, she's one of the reasons why we're fighting over this business about the woman's choice and abortion and everything. But that movie that they made about her, Ginsburg, I think, yeah, was it Ginsburg? Well, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, because I just thought about her as an example. The stuff that she had to go through when she first graduated out of law school. Well, that was typical. That was typical of the way it was for women in this country. And we're talking modern times. Now, I admit to you, I am nobody's spring chicken, okay? But I'm not Methuselah. We're talking about things that wasn't that long ago. And see, I think that's one of the problems, okay? In America, we don't like to take a look at ourselves. Or put it this way, there's a segment of us that we don't like to take a look at ourselves. Now, I'm sitting up here, we're talking about a couple of different things, talking about slavery, right? And they, we talk about, America's original sin, slavery. Well, I kind of agree with that, and I kind of disagree with that. Because I believe our original sin was when European settlers came here and essentially threw the indigenous people off the land, right? With the exception of here in New York, here in Manhattan, right? Well, hey, we paid for Manhattan. Well, actually, no, you didn't. The whole thing of $24 worth of stuff. What was his name? I think it was Peter Minuit, the Dutch governor. He paid this group of Native Americans. Well, that time, Native Americans got one on the settlers, because basically what he did, he gave them $24 worth of stuff, right? And it wasn't there, Manhattan wasn't there from the get-go. Actually, I think I might have said this about a month ago. but actually it was a tribe of Native Americans from Brooklyn. Wouldn't you know it? Hey, you guys from Brooklyn. Times haven't changed a bit, have they? But what happened, the Dutch, they gave it $24 worth of stuff to a tribe that just used to come over from Brooklyn, and they would come to Manhattan to do some fishing, hunting, and what have you. And one day they're over here doing their thing, and these Dutch guys come up on them and say, hey, listen, we want this land here. And remember, to the indigenous people, the whole concept of land, goods, or money, I take goods, money, I give it to you, and then you give me the land. Okay, that was a crazy concept to the indigenous people. Because by their way of thinking, the Great Spirit put this out here for everybody. So why do I have to, or why do you have to give me something to use, which is already here for all of us? As a matter of fact, you could say that the Native Americans, indigenous people, had a very, how should I say, super Christian attitude about things. Also a very, dare I say this, a very socialist kind of attitude, because they felt that the goods and services that were already here, they were here for all of us. Now, of course, they also had the belief that, hey, man, if you don't work, then you don't eat. Unless, of course, you're elderly, a small child, or handicapped in some fashion. But if you are a healthy person, you are supposed to be down with the tribe. Helping, go out there, you hunt, you defend the tribe, so on and so forth. Yeah, you ever thought about that, right? But that was the original sin. That was the first original sin. When you come over from someplace else and you steal my house, and then when I try to come back to, maybe do a little hunting, fishing, whatever, you try to kill me. And that sad story essentially played its way from the East Coast to the Pacific, from one end of America to the other. Then, to compound the sin, the folks, you take their land, and then you bring somebody else over here to work the land. And you don't pay these people that you brought from another continent, you don't think about paying them a dime. You bring them over here to work this stolen land to basically make you rich. Now, I know some people will be very upset at what I said, but I'm still waiting for someone to explain to me how what I just said is wrong. Explain to me how that's wrong. European settlers took America by conquest. And then after that conquest, you took me from Africa, brought me over here to the land that you already stole or was in the process of stealing, and you had me work that land. And and you don't pay me. See, this is a very unique problem, here in America, because you have these people saying, well, everybody's been a slave. Slavery is the second oldest profession, and all this other kind of stuff, right? Well, Yeah, but there's always that but, right? Yeah, yeah. And see, what makes it really rough, a lot of this, a lot of these things, Americans don't learn. They were never taught a lot of these things. So now, 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, after you've um, been through school and what have you, especially if you're like most people in this country, you never had the advantage of going to college where you might accidentally bump into the real, knowledge of the United States of America. If you're not one of those few fortunate people, and then you hear someone saying the things that I'm saying to you today, you get all flustered and offended. Oh, well, he's just a no good black commie socialist pinko bastard, It would never occur to you to, walk into a library and read a book. Oh, and to make sure that you don't walk into the library and read a book, we're going to close the libraries. Which is what they're doing, for example, in Florida and in Texas and in Arkansas, places like that. So therefore, you don't know. And then you find that your nation's having to make huge expenditures in various parts of the world, and it frustrates you, it angers you, especially when you find out that nice kid down, lived a few houses down from you, he took your daughter to the senior prom, and then you find out that he got killed in some weird place with a weird name, and it angers you. And you don't know what the hell's going on. Well, if you don't take the time to learn about yourself, then how in the hell do you think that you are able to go to the other side of the world and deal with the issues of other people who are totally different from you? See, that is a big problem. I saw it in Vietnam, saw it in the Middle East. Most Americans don't even know we waged over a 3.5-year war with the Philippines. Most Americans don't know that. Yeah. Vietnam, Korea and Vietnam weren't the first time that we were involved in jungle warfare with dark people. Vietnam was not the first time. Most people don't understand about people like, what was his name? Che Guevara, for example. Well, basically, he had the right idea. I think the way that he tried to carry out what he wanted to do was I think it was wrong. Okay? But there are reasons why. Because most folks don't know that we had South America and the Caribbean. That was America's personal lake. And we controlled everything that happened there. So, what? See, this is what I try to. Gotta be careful here at the table. But this is why I have a rough time sometimes looking at the direction that my country is going in. how did Lincoln say? We were the last best hope for mankind in terms of self-government. That's one of the reasons why he was so dead set against this whole concept of slavery. And see, that's what makes the whole American situation with slavery and everything that came after it. That's why it is so different. Now, some people, mostly Republican, I have to say, this what did I say earlier? Like slavery was no big deal. It was just a jobs program, or that everybody's been a slave at one time or another. Well, that's not exactly true. It's just like this one. What's another one that they like to put out? They. Well, they is those people that try to, for example, they try to be apologists for the Confederacy, for the South, okay? When they run this line about, well, everybody's been a slave at one time or another, and that Africans enslaved each other. Well, that's not necessarily true. Yeah, what kind of slavery, though? See, the type of forced labor that you had amongst the various groups of people in Africa, it was nothing compared to what the Europeans had going on, number one. And number two, you're going to talk about all men being created equal. See, America is the one that came up with that idea. And as you can imagine, or should be able to imagine, that's a hell of a problem. The Brits used to really laugh at us, laugh at America for that one. When they used to read this stuff about all men are created equal. And they would say, oh, and the head of the army of these freedom fighters is one of the biggest slaveholders in the colonies. Oh yeah, they had a big kick out of that. See. And then the aftermath of slavery. See, that's why, again, a lot of folks don't know, right after, during and after the end of the Revolutionary War, in many of the New England states and the mid-Atlantic states like Pennsylvania, they ended slavery. I think Pennsylvania ended slavery in, 1777, 1778? And technically, the Revolutionary War didn't stop. It stopped in 1783. Same thing with Massachusetts. Because you had people that would stand up and say, just like Tom Paine, for example, hey, man, we're supposed to be fighting for freedom, so how can we be a slave empire? Of course, primarily with the South, South Carolina at that. You look at trouble in the United States, and you can always go right to South Carolina or its representatives. Okay? Don't ask me why, but it's true. But see, that's what happened the first time when we had a chance to get rid of slavery. And making a long story short, South Carolina, leading the South, said that, listen, before we would give up slavery, this beautiful idea of a democratic union, we'll tear it to pieces before we let you take away our slaves. So much for patriotism, right, fellas? But yeah, that's why the situation here in America is so different. And the tenor of, of racism is so different. And then you look at this thing about the Mexican immigrants. I have a big problem labeling people that have been, well, they coming up from Mexico and they come across the fence, and the next thing you know, they're in Texas or Arizona and blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to figure out, well, listen, man, these people, they've been coming across this so-called fence for what, about the last 30,000 years? You know, everybody forgets that thing that my man said in the movie, you didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you. Well, that's a historical fact. And you study about the things that the Americans, you know, sometimes even in the height of World War, what they did to Mexican people, Chicanos, you know, it's crazy. It's incredible. Operation Wetback. What was that? Well, that was essentially taking Hispanic people off the street, putting them in a bus, and just shipping them down, you know, to Mexico. And you know, the guy could be, you know, might have been born and raised in Chicago, but they didn't stop to, you know, they didn't stop to think about that. They said, well, we got to get these immigrants, these Hispanic immigrants out of here. So this brouhaha that everybody's making now behind immigration, it's nothing new when it comes to dark people. Now, remember, Irish and Italians, up until the beginning of the 20th century, generally these people were not considered white. Don't take my word for it. Call it up in the Library of Congress. But these were not considered white people, especially Italians and Irish. Oh my God. But see, one of the things that helped them but didn't help us was the fact that, especially here in the North, see, most of them started off coming here through places like Boston and New York and Philadelphia. In other words, the more northern states and upper Midwest. And you had things like civil service that basically, I mean, you think it's an accident? I mean, it's different now here in 2023. But I'm old enough, I can remember when you go to a police precinct, it was Donahue, O'Brien, people, D'Ambrosio, what have you. Because they, the folks at that time, had enough sense that basically the best way to help out low-income immigrants was to give them a chance to work and earn money. That was not allowed, for the most part, to African Americans. And one of the reasons why, just to step off to the side for a moment, one of the reasons why you have such a bad relationship between law enforcement and members of the community of color is because originally that was one of the main tasks that police were assigned to do, which was basically to run herd, especially upon black people. See, a lot of this stuff goes way back, but if you don't know it, and then you find yourself, oh well, damn, why are these people so hostile? Why are they so angry? You know, it's the same thing that they do to Jewish people. Oh, well, why are the Jews so sensitive? Well, you have to remember, these folks basically watched you just stand there and watch thousands upon thousands of their brethren thrown into concentration camps and then to the ovens. And see, this is why I say that guy down there in Florida, um, the Sanctus or the Sanctimonious, that's what makes him so dangerous. As ignorant as he is, he's a very dangerous person because he wants to, he wants to stifle knowledge. And you have to beware, as we learn from looking at what happened in Central Europe in the 1930s, you have to be very leery of people that wish to stifle knowledge. And that's what we are fighting here now in the United States. We are fighting a segment of people who don't believe in democracy, who don't believe in the right of the people to control themselves, and who don't believe what we say in the Declaration. Of course, it's not just not men anymore, but the basic principle of the Declaration says what? All men are created equal. Which, of course, now we know all men and women, all people are created equal. And unfortunately, you have a segment not as small as we would hope for who don't believe that that's true. And if you think I'm lying, you can check it out for yourself. All the various court cases coming up over what? Over the simple fact of people wanting to vote. And I think that unfortunately the Democratic Party, they need to get on the ball. The Republicans can't do it. They were the ones, believe it or not, that used to do it. But they can't do it now because they are no longer the Republican Party. As I said before, I grew up in the Republican Party. This is not the Republican Party, what we have here today. The people who don't believe that all people are created equal, who don't believe that every eligible American should have the right to vote without being encumbered, unfortunately, those are the people now who are in the so-called Republican Party. Or as I call them, the new fascist party. And that is the greatest problem that we're facing now in this country. Because I tell you right now, I don't care what country you're talking about, country ain't going nowhere if they don't have a unity of purpose. And that is why America is in so much danger. A group of people said that, hey, we don't like the fact that the majority of American voters don't want our guy in the White House anymore. We feel we can't let that happen. So we are going to basically steal an election. And you can't have that. You can't have that. That's why the so-called Proud Boys, that's why they went to jail yesterday. What's her name? Torrio, 22 years. And the other two slugs, I think of what, 18 years apiece? And they deserve it. See, I get very uptight about that sort of thing. I fought for this country. I took an oath to defend the Constitution and what it stands for. And I get very upset when I see elected officials who took the same oath, by the way, but who were doing just the opposite. So listen, because I see I'm getting a little behind time here. Just pay attention. As I always say, pay attention especially now that these court cases have just started. One started today, as a matter of fact. And pay attention and read, because that's the only thing that's going to save our democracy. Reading, knowledge. So listen, I'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channels. And you guys, you take care of each other. Bless you all. Bye now.